What's going on, everyone? Happy Friday. Futures Brizio here, 2:10 p.m. on Friday, March 27th. Hope everybody's having a good day and hopefully a good wrap to the week. Before we get started, as always, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. Super appreciated. It helps out the channel. And let's just jump right in. You can see I'm off camera today, guys. No big deal. Nobody needs to see my mug, anyways, but um, I'm in the process of moving the camera a little bit, so I'm just going to go without it today. That's why. All right. Anyways, so we're going to jump right in. We'll take a quick look at the markets here and where we're at on a couple of things. So first of all, just stop on the grains for a little bit. So as you guys know, I took this wheat trade, and I mentioned about this trend line break, and we did kind of get a break in this trend line. It did try, it came back. You can see today it's done absolutely nothing. It's pretty much back to where it closed yesterday, or you can see right on this current doji candle. And the market's about to close for the week in a few minutes. And so it did nothing. So I still think this is going to go up, but I'm going to wait and try to get a little bit more bullish price action, maybe on a shorter time frame like next week. And if you go to the 4 hour, it does look like we broke. Maybe we're gonna classic break and retest. I mean, I hate following old retail patterns, but if you're bullish on this, then this looks like a good setup, right? Break, trend line, retest, and as long as we hold this market structure. This is like the 4 hour market structure. Any bullish movement over here, I'd probably consider a long position. So, but there was nothing today. Corn, as I mentioned yesterday, I'd be waiting for some confirmation of a higher prices. Again, we have been stuck in a trading range on corn essentially since March 9th. So for like 3 weeks now, almost 3 weeks. We just been kind of moving sideways here. Every time it tries to break out of this range, it snaps back. And you can see, the last pretty much this entire week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 candles right here on this daily chart, we're going to end up closing about where we started the week. So after all that, it really did nothing. So, and soybeans, same thing, has not moved out of this little daily range here since last week, over a week ago. It's been just doing this. So I had no trades today in grains. And so if we go over to Forex, I kind of reviewed some of my open trades in on my funded Forex accounts yesterday, kind of peeked inside there. And so I did close a lot of them last night during Asian session because um, they were doing really well during Asia, and sometimes when they do well during Asia, because the Asian session tends to be the opposite, the yin and yang. Not always, but a lot of times the Asian session will go in the opposite direction of New York and London. And so if I'm in a positive trade, I actually like to see that trade kind of pull back and maybe lose a little value during the Asian session. That actually generally gives me more confidence about it resuming the trend direction during London and New York. Of course, not always, and again, news and events can change that. But so last night I saw things really pushing higher during Asian session, so I closed a lot of the positions. I did leave a couple open, and actually Euro Aussie on this account I had closed, and then I reopened it again today, so that's why it's only showing an $80 profit. So not much open on this one, a little bit more on this one. This is I left Euro Aussie. No, excuse me. This Euro Aussie was reopened today, and I left Aussie dollar Euro Kiwi running from last night. So this one has a little bit more open profit. I'm going to let these run. Basically through the weekend. I do have take profits set on both the Aussie dollar and the Euro Kiwi. And I probably need to set one on Euro Aussie just in case. But I'll do that later. I got to take a look at some of the levels. But yeah, so those are what I've got running, and it's the same thing on my MetaTrader 4 personal account, but these are my funded accounts, the two challenge ones I'm in, and then like I said, I have a third one, which is a smaller one, a $25,000 one. These trades are running on that as well. So again, I'm kind of juggling multiple accounts here, but that's kind of the way it is because, like I said, I cannot find a good match trader copying service. So I'm forced to kind of do things manually right now. So if we go back to trading view and just to kind of look at where we're at here. Um, okay. So let's go back to okay, we're on Forex. Let me just kind of reset the chart a little bit. And we'll just kind of just quickly scan through these. And I'm gonna. This is literally how fast this can go. Okay, now I got like whatever this is, 20 some odd pairs here. So we got CAD Swiss, and again, I'm still playing around with the length of this indicator, the CSI indicator, the look back. Yesterday, I was told you I had it on 21. I've moved it back to 14, and I keep kind of going back and forth. I certainly don't want to go less than 14, but somewhere between 14 and 21. And I've played around with the time frames, like the 12-hour or the daily, and there's not a big difference. And I just prefer to stay on these high time frames, even if I don't get a lot of trades, because the ones I do get generally do well. Not always, but the 12-hour will make it a little quicker, but not substantially, and it does, increase the risk of false signals even just going from daily to 12-hour. So, but somewhere between that 12-hour and daily chart's kind of the sweet spot for me, and with 14 to 21 day look back period. So we're going with 14 right now. And I'll continue to refine that. And it might just be, it's going to vary depending on which market I look at. Not every market's the same, right? Markets move differently. Sorry, having a drink. And so let's go and just look at all these quick. CAD Swiss. And again, first thing I'm doing, guys, is coming up here. Okay, this is our uh, our currency strength indicator. So to me, nothing going on right here on CAD Swiss. We don't have any crossover. We don't have any clear trend. We don't have deflection off of each other. So nothing there. Um, Aussie Canadian. The Canadian was also weakening today too, so that's why this is not a great trade. Even though we technically had a cross, but you can see the Canadian dollar is also kind of moving south too. So even though the Aussie dollar cut through here, if the CAD like was equally pointing up at the same time, then that would be a great short. But again, just looking at the overall price action and looking at the way the indicator's oriented, not really interested in that. Pound Canadian, I closed that pound CAD trade last night. Although I do think that this will ultimately move higher. If you, again, looking at the indicator, we've got this big split right here. But again, I don't chase this. So if I wasn't already in a trade on this time frame, I would not be taking this trade because it happened, really last Friday. Friday, Thursday. It's been a week. And so we're probably going to see a bigger pullback. Now, what I might do is go to like a 4-hour chart if I wanted to be aggressive. And you can see these two lines kind of coming together on the 4-hour chart. And so if a corrective move happens to end and the uptrend resumes, then these two lines will start to diverge against each other again. We'll have one will start sharply bending up and one hopefully sharply bending down. That will be my entry because I'm probably not going to get this entry again on the daily chart because it's already happened. But if I'm convinced that it's bullish, then I could go to a shorter time frame, say again like a 4-hour, and try to look for a re-entry if you want to do that. Dollar Canadian is one of those trades I'm in right now, as you saw. And, I'm targeting at least initially this prior resistance level, which price is approaching here pretty quickly. I do expect to see a reaction off this zone. It doesn't mean it's going to reverse and go down. But anytime there's a big level like this, especially on a higher time frame, everybody else sees this too. And so it's quite likely that there will be a reaction. And so you can see we're approaching that area pretty quickly. Here's the weekly chart. And, I'm not saying it's going to end right here. It could very well just pull back and then blast right through here. And then you can see just above that, there's another zone. That one's probably actually even more important because you can see this big corrective move that led up to it before it went down. So this one's probably a temporary stop This one would probably be a more aggressive pullback area. But anyways, I'm in the dollar CAD. We'll see what happens when it gets to this zone, and that's that. Okay. Euro dollar, nothing going on here. Both are kind of trending up. The last signal we had was way back here when these two lines kind of came together and we had this sell off. We have nothing right now. They're both trending up. And so I've passed on that. Euro Aussie, we already talked about. Pound Aussie is very much like Euro Aussie. Again, you can see the big divergence that happened back here last Friday, 1 week ago. This crossover happened, and you can see it's been going straight up since then. Again, I'm out of this trade. I was in this yesterday, but you can see we probably will get a retest or a resumption of this move. Not today, obviously, but I will wait to see if we can get some. I'd love to see these come together. These are still spaced out a little bit too much for my liking, even on the 4 hour. But I'd love to see some divergence off here. You can see when they start to flatline like this, even if they're not twisted together, these flatlining, usually means kind of like the market's in balance right now. It's kind of a corrective stage. The market's taking a breath. Like I said, what I love to see them kind of come together and then repel off each other, that magnet theory I talked about. But we'll see what happens next week. It certainly could go to a shorter time frame. You can probably, make that happen. But you can see what happens when you go to the shorter time. Here's the 1 hour. The indicator just gets really messy. So I just assume stay on the higher ones, moderate, medium to higher time frames, and just go with that. So I'm still bullish this, but I'm out of it for now going into the weekend. Same story here, pretty much with the pound New Zealand dollar divergence. This happened back again. This actually happened even further back. This was like last Tuesday, Wednesday. And then, we had this little pullback here, but overall it's still diverging away. And so there's no trade. There's nothing here for me to do on the daily chart. We do have kind of this triple top area coming up here on the daily chart. So there might be a little overhead room for this to continue up before we probably get a more substantial corrective move. And so it's quite likely I won't touch this one until then, but we'll see. Euro Kiwi we talked about. Pound US dollar, nothing really doing right here. They both are heading up right now, but we don't have any real divergence. The price is heading down, but the strength on these is both trending upwards. I don't really know what that means, except that, obviously it would make sense that the dollar's heading up, which is the blue line. Why the pound is heading up. It could be suggesting that maybe we're going to run into some corrective action. Maybe we get to this low and bounce, and this is maybe a little telltale sign that, there's a bounce coming. I'm not really sure. But we did have this move down though. Aussie US dollar, we already talked about. I'm already in that one. New Zealand US dollar, nothing going on here. Again, this was our last entry, was back here again last Friday. No, excuse me, this was a month ago. This is February 27th. So this was a month ago. And you could have just been in this trade the whole time. But nothing doing for me right now. Canadian yen. This one's on my watch list. You can see I've got a little I've got an alert set right here, but the CAD is pretty weak right now, so that's not really too appealing right now. But we did see them come together here. If we start to see these diverge away from each other, then potentially that could be a long on this position, which is why I have this alert set, but it's kind of far away. And so I'm not overly aggressive on it. I mean, we do have a fairly bullish market action here, although, this has been trending down here for a little bit. So we'll see what happens, but nothing really to do with that right now. Aussie yen, we have this nice crossover right here. That actually happened, what was that, probably a couple of days ago? Yeah, that was on Wednesday. And you can see I didn't take this trade, but I do have an alert set a little further down. And if we can start breaking lower here, what's like on a 4 hour chart, I'd probably be more inclined to jump into this because it's a couple of days late, but price hasn't really gone that far. I know I told you I like to get into these within a couple of days of the signal, but you can see even in that couple of days, price has not gone very far. So I want to see if this maintains, and if we can take out this level here, then and this keeps up, and especially if we can get this blue line, which is the yen, to start bending a little more upwards, then that would be a great short. So it's on my watch list. New Zealand dollar yen. It's similar, but it's more messy, And again, the New Zealand pairs generally are a little more messy than their cousins, in the Australian dollar pairs. I don't know why, if it's just more volatile, not as much volume, not really sure, but it's pretty much telling you the same story. It's just not as clean. But right now, I'd probably be more inclined to take the Aussie yen if I was going to. All right, so here we are on euro yen. Now this one, of course, is showing a lot of euro strength, but the yen itself also is heading up. So you can see we really haven't been making much headway here. This has again been pretty much moving sideways for really the last month or so on the daily chart. You can see it's in this pretty tight range right here. Not really doing too much. Um, again, this is kind of the opposite. Like on the Aussie dollar, we were looking for the yen to strengthen for a short. Well, on the euro yen, I'm looking for the yen to weaken to hopefully push the euro yen higher. So this is why I don't get like married to a particular bias. I just let the market tell me what it wants to do. If the euro keeps strengthening, then we see this yen line start hockey sticking down, then I'll forget about the Aussie yen short and I'll look for a euro yen long, for instance, because I'm just going to go with what the market's giving me. But right now, the yen is kind of neutral, um, and you can see it's not really doing too much. We did have this crossover back here, but you can see ever since that crossover, the market really has made no progress whatsoever. So I have not taken this one. I just haven't really been a fan of the price action inside of this range. But if you were more aggressive, this was a long entry right here. But you would be in slight profit right now if you took it at the close of this big candle where the crossover happened, compared to where price is now. You'd be in a small profit. Swiss yen is all kind of tangled up, and again, these are two safe haven currencies, and you can see there's not really much going on with these right now. We're still in an uptrend on the weekly chart, and let me just push this up a little bit so we can get a little better view. And you can see again, just we're kind of in a range right now. It's just after hitting these new highs, made 1, 2, 3 attempts to go higher and failed. But I mean, I wouldn't say the trend direction has changed yet. To me, this is not proven that it's in any kind of definitive trend right now on this time frame. So I'll be waiting for some divergence to happen on the indicator, and then we'll see. US dollar yen. Again, the yen's kind of neutral, but as I stated, the best way to get action on these is to have one currency strong and the other one weak. But I also said you can also have one neutral and the other one either weak or strong, and price will still move as long as there's enough momentum behind the second one. And in this case, the dollar is moving up, even though the yen is flatline. The dollar yen is still rallying. So, I mean, the entry to this was way back here. So now it would only be like re-entries on a shorter time frame if I was going to trade this. So something like the 4-hour chart, we had a well, that probably was the original entry. Let's see here. No, it was back. The original entry was actually theoretically was back here. Then we had this huge correction. Talk about flushing out long positions, right? You got to have nerves of steel to hold on to it here. We had this bullish crossover back here on February 3rd, right? You had this bullish crossover. You go long. And then we have, went up kind of, gently for about 3 days. And then boom, came all the way back down to the origin of this up move. And then the real move took off. So, like, if you were live trading this, and you saw these 1, 2, 3, 4 basically bear days, and 3 of them like big candles heading towards here. I mean, talking about just running stops and flushing liquidity and stuff, whatever SMT phraseology you want to use. This is it right here. This is picture perfect. So if you missed that one, though, fortunately you had another entry, which actually would have been much less stressful right here. you had the second entry after the corrective move, okay, that happened right here. And then price went up. And this actually would have been a perfectly great entry. It would have been pretty much equal to this one without all of this stress right here. Because I don't know how many people would have held through this. So, especially if you bought near the top. So, anyways, moving on, Aussie Swiss, both kind of trending down. I had an Aussie Swiss short on. I took it off because I wasn't really doing it. It seemed to be running out of steam, which it did today. You can see it kind of ran flat. Um, and both of these were heading down, so I just chose not to do anything. I just closed that last night and took my profit on that. So nothing else really happening right there. Here's a nice crossover on the GBP Swiss. I don't think I'm still in that at all. No, I closed GBP Swiss on both of these, right? I believe. Yes, I closed GBP Swiss on both of these. Um, because again, I got in back when this first crossover first happened. And you can see overall here, let me just refresh the chart. You can see overall, I mean, yeah, we're heading up. We've been heading up on the daily chart. But if we go to a weekly chart, we are still technically in a downtrend. So that's another reason why I didn't want to hold that one. I mentioned about taking these trends against these trades, these signals against the larger trend. And this is one. Now, I mean, ultimately, this might be the turn to a big up move. You can see this is basically a double bottom. We had this giant wick way back here in September of 2022, like 3.5 years ago, right here. And price, the buyer stepped in at the end of this trading day and, pushed it back up. And then it range traded for like a couple of years, kind of drifted back down. And I'm not saying it's going to bounce and go higher from here, but if you just look at this recent price action, really from these highs back here, we're still kind of moving down. And so on the daily chart, I was a little hesitant about holding this too long, although it probably will go higher. I mean, especially if the pound continues to strengthen. We'll see what happens with this, but that was why I cut that one early, because if that weekly trend were bullish, there's no way I would have cut that trade, especially with that double bottom. Um, but we are technically still in a downtrend, and I do look at the higher time frames. I don't dwell on it, but I will take a quick look like I just did. And if it's very clear what the pattern is, if it's not clear on the daily, which it isn't, just quickly looking at the daily chart here, it's not that clear. If you go to the weekly, it's pretty clear. And until some major market structure like this area right here gets broken, which probably take at least a couple more weeks before this area would be taken out. Then price might continue to drift towards here, but um, if this downtrend is going to continue, this could turn at any time now and start going back down. So that's why I cut it. All right, and last is dollar Swiss, which is a pair I just started following again. The dollar Swiss is the inverse of the euro US dollar. Okay, so whatever the euro US dollar is doing, the dollar Swiss is going to be doing the exact opposite and almost pip for pip. So if the euro is going up 100 pips, the dollar Swiss is going down 100 pips. Okay, if you lay them over the top of each other, they're inversely correlated. Okay, so you can see right here we had this bullish crossover, and again, I just started following this pair again this week. So obviously, this trade I did not take. This was back on March 11th. Then we had this little pullback, but the uptrend was still in place, and it's still moving, and the Swiss franc is still pushing down, and the U.S. dollar is still pushing up. So if I had gotten into this trade, this would be a great one to still continue to be in. Okay. So there you go. That's literally how simple it is. I've been doing a lot of talking. Obviously, if I was just doing this on my own, I would have done this even quicker. Just quickly flipping back over to the futures indices, the currency futures. Excuse me. I didn't really talk about this yesterday, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I have the indicator modified so that it's also tracking these. All of these are against the US dollar. Okay, so the orange line is whatever the currency future is, and the uh, whatever color this is, bluish aqua, is against the DXY, which is the US dollar index. Okay. And so that's how I use this. There were no setups the last couple of days on this that I took. But this is the euro. This is euro futures. Is just the euro. You can see um, this move right here. Okay, pointing down. Okay, and so this kind of where it came together was a re-entry for a short. All right. This is also Euro futures, is just the E-mini, so it's exactly the same. This is the Euro USD futures, not spot Forex. Again, exactly the same. So all three of these are exactly the same look. Okay. This is the Australian dollar. And again, the the entry, so again, the orange line is the Aussie and the blue one is the US dollar. So the entry really was like back here and back here, but there's nothing going on right that. This is Aussie USD spot Forex, again, exactly the same. So we're not going to bother on that. And then here's the New Zealand dollar. Okay. And again, this was the last entry was back here. Okay. And you could have been in it ever since, but there's nothing doing right now. British pound. Okay. Against the dollar. Okay. Again, the orange line is the pound. The blue is the dollar. And again, that's sending this one down. And then we have Swiss franc futures is again, just the Swiss franc currency futures, just compared against the DXY. And again, this is the Swiss franc, this is the dollar, and you can just see that, these uh these entries. Here's was your last entry was right here. And then there was technically another re-entry where these kind of almost came back together. That was back on Monday of this week. Then we have this one. This actually would have been a good re-entry on Japanese yen futures where they kind of came back together. Um, and maybe this is one where I need to use a little bit shorter time frame or change the length of this. Let's just change this to 10. I want to see what that looks like. Where these come back together and then diverge apart. There was an entry right there. Okay, so again, you have to play around a little bit with the length, but you don't want to form fit it to what you want. I mean, you want it to be in line with the trend. But when these two kind of like are divergent, really far apart like this, that's a strong trend. And then when they come back together again, that's your pullback, your contraction phase, getting ready for the next move down in this case, because they didn't cross each other. So when they come together like this but don't cross, this is basically just showing you a corrective phase. And then as soon as they start to diverge away from each other again, which really happened on this candle right here, then that's your entry. All right. So it's a great timing thing. And then this one right here was really sweet. This is the Canadian dollar. You can see weakening. And you can see, we were going down and then we came back together, kissed right here. It was a perfect divergent trade, right? They came together, touched right here. The the DXY headed back up and the Canadian dollar headed down. That signal came right in here, probably like on this candle or this one here. And then look how much it's moved down. Okay. So that's just the power of this indicator. It's very, very simple. People laugh at it, but I'm telling you, it works really well. And again, you can probably use it on any high. I could probably use this on any time frame, but I don't really have any intention of doing that because it's just going to create too many signals. And I know for me, it will lead to over trading, which is why I like to stick to these higher time frame. It forces me to sit on my hands a lot, which is an unnatural thing for most traders because we've all been conditioned to be productive. You got to be doing something, right? It's burnt into us from a young age, from going to school and getting a job and doing all those things. Like you're told to, you're being productive when you're doing something. Well, in this case, it's trading, right? You're being productive, it's trading, it's being in a trade. If you're just sitting here for days and days and days or weeks and weeks and weeks looking at a particular market and there's nothing going on, you feel like, what the hell am I doing? But actually you're doing it exactly right. You're preserving your capital and you are waiting, being a sniper and waiting for an entry, whether it's a crossover, type thing, or whether it's a deflection trade like this one, which is basically a trend continuation, or again, whether it's a crossover, which is a trend reversal. Like here, we were going down and then we cross back up right here. There's your reversal, and you have this big move up. Or you have this again, this deflection trade, okay, where price was kind of moving sideways down, and then they came to the kissed and then started pushing away like that magnet theory. And then it led to this big downtrend, which as we speak is still going on and probably will continue at least down to, this swing low down here, which is, maybe another day of trading or so. All right. So that's really as simple as it gets as far as I'm concerned. So, but nothing's perfect. I take losses. But I can also tell you that I can't remember the last time I was stopped out of anything. I put a stop loss on my trades just for that last resort backstop. Something crazy happens and I'm not on the chart in the middle of the night or whatever, and hope that my stop loss actually is doesn't blast right through it. 99% of the time it will trigger and you'll be out of the trade. And that's kind of my worst case scenario. If I see a trade going against me, I will reanalyze. I'll look at the price action. I'll look at the indicator a little closer. And 90% of the time, I'm going to cut the trade long before it gets to my stop loss. So if I had, a $500 risk, on my stop loss, by the time I get to like $250 on that, I'm probably cutting it anyways. So my risk ends up being, about half of what it usually was. So again, my stop loss is there just as like that last backstop, especially if I'm not in front of my chart. But I'm cutting my losers, as soon as I feel like I was wrong, the market structure has changed or the indicator isn't following through on what I thought, and then I'll get out of it and it's fine. So it's not all winning trades, not by any means. Don't let anybody tell you that, because that's not true ever for anybody, any system, any time frame. I don't care. It's just not. But for me, I love the simplicity of this. And again, my stop loss is there just for last resort, but I very rarely let it get hit. So, all right. So I'll leave it there, guys. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Questions, comments, leave them down below. Appreciate it. As always, you guys have an awesome weekend, and I'll be back next week and we'll pick it up. All right. Thanks.